I'm Mr. Malden, and this is the Math Toolbox, where I teach you how to become a middle school math master. So if you're interested in that, then I want to encourage you to hit the subscribe button down below and share this with your friends. If you're in 7th grade, this material, nationwide should be material that should help you. And if you're in 6th grade, a lot of this is material that would help you as well, especially some of the earlier videos on adding, subtracting integers, things like that. But today our objective is subtracting linear expressions. And so if you haven't watched the video already on adding linear expressions, you're going to want to do that. That's going to help you be able to understand a little bit more clearly what we're going to be doing today. But that's our objective today, is to subtract linear expressions. So we're going to get right in this. Just as a way of reminder, you've got the positive, negative, negative triangle that you can use anytime that you're multiplying positive and negative numbers. Now, I told you that we're subtracting linear expressions, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But part of that is going to be incorporating some multiplication by -1. All right, so I want to just remind you about this positive, negative, negative triangle. So that if you're like multiplying a -1 times 5, all right, you do the multiplication like normal. 1 times 5 is 5. And then you can use this positive, negative, negative triangle to be able to determine what the sign is going to be. You have a negative number, so you can cover up one of the negatives, multiplied by a positive number. All right, so you can cover up the positive, and then what do you have left over? You have a negative. A negative times a positive is going to be a negative, all right? And so just wanted to remind you about that tool. If you haven't seen that tool before, you can go back and watch the video on multiplying and dividing integers, because it's going to be integers are going to be positive and negative complete numbers, and so that's going to be the video where I talk about this positive, negative, negative triangle. All right, but I do want to just remind you about that as we get into our lesson. All right, here we go. Subtracting linear expressions. All right, you see an example right up here on the board. You've got 4y plus 7 as a grouping, and then you have a subtraction symbol right here, and you've got 3 plus 2y. Well, inside these groupings, both of these expressions are what we call linear expressions. And I don't want to make this too complicated. I'm not trying to do this lesson today. But the reason why we call these linear expressions, let's just take 4y plus 3, all right? If I were to represent this, this is a variable with the coefficient, and you've got a constant right here. If I were to represent this in a linear equation, which would look like this, I'm going to change that y to an x over here just so that you can be able to see this as a linear equation. That's a linear equation where you've got two variables. The reason why we call it linear is because when you graph this, all right, it's going to be graphed like this. There's the y-intercept, all right, at +3, and then you've got that 4 over here, which is your slope. It's going to be your rise, 1, 2, 3, 4 over run. 1, because 4 is the same thing as 4 over 1. You've got a rise over a run. You plot the next point, and then you just connect these dots right here, and you make a line, all right? The reason why we call them linear expressions is because when you graph them, they'll make lines. Now, again, that's not the nature of today's lesson, all right? But I just wanted to go over that point so that you understand what that word linear means in the phrase linear expression, all right? They're going to be expressions that make lines. All right, but now today we are subtracting two linear expressions. There's one linear expression, and here's the other one, all right? Now it looks a little backwards because we've got the variable second and the constant first, but it's the same thing because the commutative property of addition says we could swap these. Inside the grouping, there's just addition right here, so we could swap these out. It really doesn't have any effect on the fact that it's still a linear expression. They're just moved backwards, all right? But we're subtracting these two expressions, all right? Let's just recap just really quickly on what I would do if I were adding them. If I were adding linear expressions, so I'd have an addition sign in between the linear expressions instead of the subtraction, it's a really easy Adding linear expressions is a really easy process, and subtracting is not much different. But you would use the associative property of addition to be able to regroup these. Because you have addition in between here and only addition, that's the only operation that you see, you can regroup these numbers to put the like terms next to each other, all right, and then put the constants next to each other, all right? So you've got the constants next to each other, the like terms that have the same variable, you can put those in the same grouping, and then you can simplify on down from there. If 4y plus 2y is 6y, and 7 plus 3 is 10. All right, so if I had addition in between the linear expressions, it's really, really easy. You just regroup them and then just add up your like terms, all right? But we don't have addition, we have subtraction. And it's not that much harder. You just have another little step in here that you need to follow, all right? And the steps that we're going to follow are the same steps that we use whenever we're simplifying expressions. We use order of operations, right? Which worldwide we know of as PEMDAS, all right? I add keep change opposite at the very beginning, and then what I call reverse keep change opposite at the very end. All right, this turns anything into a subtraction, or sorry, to addition problem. So any subtractions that you see, you turn those to addition, and at the very end you clean up your expression to turn any plus negatives or minus negatives back into a subtraction problem. But we're going to go through this step by step, but I do recommend highly that you write down the process and then you just take it step by step. This isn't unlike any of the other ones that we've done here recently, the simplifying expressions. You're just following the same process. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to apply keep change opposite. Now when I'm applying keep change opposite, I look up in my expression, I'm looking for any subtractions up here, and I see one right there, okay? So when I write this process out, I'm really more focused on this process than I am on the expression itself. The expression itself looks pretty complicated, and so in order to kind of divert my attention and to give me something that's just like a step-by-step process, I write out this process over here so that I can just really focus on it. All right. The first thing I have to do is apply keep change opposite, which I see right here. There's a plus sign, so I'm going to keep everything in front of it. Plus sign. There's a subtraction sign. I'm going to turn it to a plus sign. I'm going to change. So change that addition or subtraction to addition, and then I've got to make something its opposite. Well, the next number in this expression is really on a grouping. All right. There's this whole grouping right there that we can understand because there's a parentheses right here. This is going to simplify to just one number. All right. Now we can't do that simplification right now because we have a variable present inside there. But once we find out what that variable is, and we can substitute it, we can add them together, and this would be simplified down to one number. So the thing that we're making the opposite is the whole grouping. So I'm going to put this negative sign right outside the grouping. All right. So again, the way that we did this is we're applying keep change opposite. We're going to that subtraction right there. All right, and we're going to apply keep everything in front, change, subtraction to addition, and then the next number is going to have to be its opposite. And the way that we do that, if it's a grouping, is we put the negative on the outside just like that. All right? And when we put the negative outside, then we have this kind of invisible space right here that we have to remember there's a invisible number, which is a -1, or just a 1 right there outside that parentheses. So whenever we make this next number its opposite, we need to understand it's for the whole grouping, so we're going to supply that 1 right there, which ultimately, when we get down to this step, the multiplication and division, we're going to multiply times everything in the grouping. But that was the first step, and the most important step for subtracting linear expressions is taking that subtraction sign, turning it to addition, and then adding a -1 on the outside of that grouping, just like that. All right? So we apply keep change opposite. Now we're going to go down to our parentheses and see if we can simplify these, and we can't, all right, because they don't have the same terms, all right? And there are no exponents in the expression, so we don't have to do that step. We're all the way down to multiplication, and now is when we can go ahead and apply this multiplication to everything inside the grouping. We have the -1, multiplied by the grouping, and it's multiplied by everything in the grouping. So I'm going to be sure and write the arrows up there, but don't forget the fact that those arrows are just instructions for you. So you're writing them, you're writing your instructions, and now you have to follow the instructions. So we're going to multiply. -1 times 3, that would be a -3, because 1 times 3 is 3, and a negative times a positive is a negative. Again, I remind you at the beginning of the video, this is where that positive, negative triangle comes in into play right here, all right? We're multiplying that -1 times everything inside the grouping, which means we're multiplying positive and negative numbers. And I see a plus sign, I'm going to pull that down. And now I've got a -1 times 2y, which will make that a -2y, just like that, all right? I'm going to close up my grouping, put my plus sign down, and I'm going to bring down everything I haven't touched because I'm done with multiplication, all right? I scratch out what I did, that's the math that I did, and then I bring down everything I haven't touched. So I haven't touched the 4y plus 7 yet, and the plus sign in between those two linear expressions, I brought it all down, all right? By the time you get down to this fourth step of PEMDAS, all that should be left over, if you applied keep change opposite at the beginning like we did, the only thing that should be left over is addition. And in this step, when only you have addition left, you can apply either the commutative property of addition or associative property of addition to rearrange it and put all the like terms kind of next to each other to group them. So right here, the next step I'm going to do is put my same terms next to each other. So I've got the 4y and the -2y put in the same grouping. So I'm just regrouping everything. And the reason why I can do that right now is because everything is addition. You cannot do this step until everything in the expression is addition, right? And I've got my 7 over here plus -3. I regrouped that. I'm going to erase this just for space, okay? All right, now I'm going to combine like terms. 4y plus -2y is going to be a positive 2y because they have different signs. So you're going to subtract the number and keep the sign of the larger number. So 4 minus 2 is 2, and the larger number was 4. It's positive. Then I've got a plus sign right here. 7 plus -3, that's going to be a positive 4. Again, they're on different teams. So team positive, team negative, they don't like each other. There's a war. We subtract them. We keep the sign of the larger number. And that is our answer. We simplified this down to 2y plus 4. I did the addition, and I just already kind of mentally already realized I'm not going to have to do any cleaning up of my expression because I don't see a plus negative or a minus negative, all right? So I don't have to apply reverse keep change opposites. So my final answer is 2y plus 4, and I can't simplify any further than that because those are not the like terms, right? So we cannot combine them. All right. Not that much to remember in addition to everything else that we did. The only thing relative for this lesson, all right, if you've already watched the videos on adding linear expressions or combining like terms, then you kind of already understand this process. If you don't understand this process and you want more practice, you can go back and watch some of those other videos. Again, adding linear expressions and the combining like terms videos, both of those kind of talk about this process. We use it quite a bit. But now I want you to try at home, I want you to try this one. Not this one. This is just showing you a recap of all the math that we just did. I want you to try this next one right here. All right. Let me see if I can pause this. Okay, sorry about that glitch. I had somebody come in the classroom, so I had to pause the recording. But here we go. We've got the next linear expression that I want you to subtract. And what I want you to do at home is to go ahead and hit your pause button and go ahead and try to solve this with the steps that we just talked about. And then come back to it. I think I was talking about the ability for you to be able to watch some of the other videos to understand this process. This process isn't new. It's not new to me. I'm sorry, I didn't invent it. This is a universal language, PEMDAS. I just apply keep change opposite at the very beginning to minimize or eliminate any subtractions here. But again, hit this pause button if you haven't. Hit your pause button to go back and do this. If you haven't done so already, then you can come back and get what the answer is. I'm going to go ahead and move forward with everybody else. All right. So our expression right here, we've got negative 2p plus 4 minus negative 12p minus 3. And again, the first thing I want to do is apply keep change opposite to any subtractions. So when I'm going to this first step of keep change opposite, all right, I'm looking for any subtractions inside the problem. And I'm going to take that subtraction and I'm going to use a process to turn that to an addition problem. All right, and the process is keep change opposite. I keep everything in front, so notice how I just brought it down. Negative 2p plus 4, just brought that down. That stayed the same. All right, then the subtraction became an addition sign. And then after the subtraction, I need to make the next number its opposite. But I make a recognition the next number is a whole grouping. And so I can't just apply the opposite to one of the numbers. It's got to be the opposite to everything inside the grouping. So the way that I'm effectively going to do that is put the negative on the outside of the parentheses and then supply the 1 right there. All right? So I change the subtraction to addition, and then to make the next number its opposite, I apply a negative. I put a negative 1 on the outside of the grouping so that when I get down to the multiplication part, I can go ahead and carry it through and distribute the negative 1 multiplication times everything inside the grouping, right? So again, now we've done the keep change opposite in this step right here. Now I'm going to move on down to my parentheses. I can't simplify those because they don't have like terms on the inside of there. And you know, I'm wanting to go ahead and redistribute this, but I can't do that yet because I don't redistribute until I get down to this 4th step of PEMDAS. I've got other steps I've got to apply before I can start regrouping everything. All right, so again, I can't simplify the parentheses. Now I'm down to exponents. I don't see any. All right, so I'm all the way down to multiplication and division. And I need to do this before I start trying to regroup it using the associative property. So I've got this negative 1 right here multiplied by everything inside the grouping. So I'm going to draw the arrows, and then I'm going to do the multiplication. Negative 1 times negative 12p is a positive 12p. All right, because 1 times 12 is 12, and negative times negative is a positive. Then I keep my plus sign right here, and then I've got 1 times 3 is 3, and a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, and the reason why that's a negative 3 is because we applied keep change opposite a while ago to make that subtraction plus sign, and the next number, positive 3, became a negative 3. So again, that negative 1 times negative 3 is a positive 3. Now this is the common mistake, and everybody makes this mistake from time to time. All right, the mistake in this kind of problem right here will not so much worry so much about the first number. It's really the second number inside of a grouping that this mistake often happens, that you forget to multiply whatever that coefficient is on the outside of the grouping times everything inside the grouping. All right, but that negative 1 had to be multiplied by that negative 3. That's what made that a positive 3. All right, so we're done with multiplication now. And we're all the way down to addition or subtraction from left to right, which again, if I apply keep change opposite at the beginning, I don't have any subtraction at the end. I just have addition. So now I can, because it's all addition inside of here, I can regroup them. All right, so I'm going to put all my p's together. So I've got a negative 2p and a positive 12p. And then I'm going to put my constants together. Positive 4 and positive 3, those both go together, and then you can simplify on down. Negative 2 plus negative 12 is a positive 10. Those are p's, and then 3 plus 4 is 7. All right? Go ahead and pause the video and try this one at home before you come back and get a little bit of understanding. All right. If you haven't paused the video already, you want to do that because I'm about to go through what the answer is. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and write my expression here. I see 7/11 x plus 6 minus 1/11 x plus 8. All right, that's our answer. By the way, if you came up with as your final answer an 8/11 x or a positive 14 anywhere in your expression, you might want to pause this and go back and try it again. Okay, this right here is a common mistake for this problem right here. All right, so it's not 8/11 x. All right, that's a wrong answer. So if you got 8/11 x, you want to pause the video and go back and try it again. Or if when you combine the constants, you got 14, That is also wrong. You want to pause the video, try it again, see if you can recognize what your mistake is. And if you're not writing the process through, all right, you're not writing it step by step, you need to do that. That's in your best interest to show your work. That way you can be able to go back inside your work and be able to recognize really quickly where you went wrong, all right? Well, we're going to try this. We're going to go through this process. So we're going to start with keep, change, opposite. And when I start that, I'm looking for any subtraction signs, and I see one right there. Okay, so I'm going to keep what's in front of it, change it to addition, and the next number will be negative, which is a grouping. So I'm going to put the -1 on the outside of my grouping, just like that. All right, I finished the keep, change, opposite. I'm going to move on down to the parentheses. I can't simplify those because they don't have like terms. There are no exponents, which means I'm down all the way to the multiplication or division from left to right. And I see the multiplication right here, the -1, right? -1 is being multiplied by everything inside the grouping, just like that, okay? I'm going to move this a little bit closer so I can be able to look at you in the camera at the same time. All right, there we go. -1 times 1/11 x is -1/11 x. Because 1 times 1/11 x is 1/11 x, and a negative time a positive is a negative. And then I've got my plus sign. Pull it down. Now, -1 times +8 is a -8, all right? And this is the math that I've done, so I'm going to scratch it out. And now I'm going to bring down everything I haven't touched, all right? So I have 7/11 x right here, plus 6. And then I'm going to keep my plus sign in between there. So we effectively changed that subtraction to an addition problem, and then we multiplied that -1 times everything on the inside to effectively make everything on the inside its opposite. All right? Now then, we're all the way down to the addition step, which means every operation that's in this problem is only addition. So I can go ahead and regroup this. I'm going to put all my like terms next to each other. So I'm going to be really careful that when I pull this over, that is a -1. If it's -1 here, it's -1/11 x here. All right? So there we go. Put a plus sign. I'm going to put my 6 over here and my -8. Regroup the constants together. All right? Now then I'm going to go finish up this math. All right? I have 7/11 plus -1/11, all right, which those have different signs. That means I'm going to subtract these and keep the sign of the larger number. 7 minus 1 is 6. Right? And the larger number was positive, all right? So that's 6/11 x plus 6 plus -8, that's going to be a -2 because they have different signs. Subtract them, keep the sign of the larger number. So that's going to be a -2. So I applied my addition step, and then now at the very end, I'm looking for reverse, keep, change, opposite. I'm looking for any plus negatives or minus negatives, all right? And I see one. Here's a plus negative right here. All right, there's a plus negative, which means I'm going to apply reverse, keep, change, opposite. So it means I'm going to keep the number in front, change that addition to subtraction, and the next number is going to be its opposite. So the opposite of -2 is a +2. So I'm going to just erase that. So my final answer is 6/11 x minus 2. All right, let's try one more. You try that one. You've got you got 10.4x plus 3 minus 6.4x plus 10, all right? Again, I want you to pause this video and go back and try it yourself before I do it so that you can compare your answer to my answer. All right, we've got 10.4x plus 3 minus 6.4x plus 10. All right. And again, we're going to apply keep, change, opposite. So I'll go to that subtraction. Keep, change, opposite. So I'm going to put the -1 on the outside of the grouping so that I know that I have to multiply that later. I cannot simplify the parentheses because they don't have like terms. There are no exponents. I'm all the way down to multiplication. Here it is right here. I have to multiply that -1 times everything inside the grouping. So -1 times 6.4 is -6.4x. Plus -1 times 10 is a -10. All right. Scratch that out. Bring down everything I haven't touched yet. 10.4x plus 3. Now then, I'm all the way down to my addition step because I did all the multiplication. I'm going to regroup them. So I have 10.4x plus negative 6.4x plus 3 plus negative 10. Now that I'm going to combine the like terms, I've got 10.4 plus negative 6.4, which they have different signs, so I'm going to subtract them. 10.4 minus 6.4 is 4 wholes, all right? And the larger number was positive, so that's 4. Don't forget your variable x's. Plus 3 plus negative 10 is a negative 7. They have different signs, so we subtract them, keep the sign of the larger number. We did all our addition, and now we're down to reverse keep change opposite, which I'm looking for any plus negatives or minus negatives, and I see one right there. So I'm going to keep the number in front, change the addition back to subtraction, and the opposite of negative 7 is a positive 7. And that is my final answer, because I cannot simplify that anymore. All right. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Feel free to go back and watch it again. If this helped you, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I'm recording every single lesson, and so we'll just take it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We should get through everything nationwide that anybody's going through in 7th grade. But again, hope you have a good day, and email me down below, message me down below if you have any questions about this lesson or do you want to see a lesson on a different topic. Hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.